Hello, in this video, I will be talking about my project, PowerPost, a framework for designing visual political communication. Visual media is an essential medium of political communication. The first uses of multimodal visual media for political communication was in the 19th century in the form of election posters. Then, the World Wars accelerated the use of political posters by governments as tools of propaganda. Since then, political communication through visual media has evolved. In the contemporary context, the usage of visual political communication is not limited to political parties and governments, but are also being used by broader stakeholders in democracies. Members of civil society are increasingly using visual political communication for various causes, including expression of dissent. This is an image from an anti-CAA protest in Bhopal I went to in January this year. As you can see, the people participating in this protest are holding placards given to them by the organizers. Looking at these placards, I asked myself, are these placards able to attract anyone's attention? Will people read them? And if they do, will they remember the message in them? Essentially, are these placards effective in communicating the message they want to? And I couldn't help but answer no. But this does not need to be the case. Here, we see two women holding a poster designed by Shepard Fairey, a designer who is well known for his political posters. This poster, in contrast to the previous example, communicates its message very effectively. It is a pro-immigration poster and it says, to those who may be anti-immigration, that despite who I am or what I wear, I can be as American as you are. The use of the colors and symbols from the American flag are deliberate and is intended to appeal to those who may hold a negative stance on immigration due to a sense of nationalism. There are many people who are politically active and may want to represent a cause or express themselves through visual mediums. However, as from the example of the protest in Bhopal shows, most people are not trained as designers and may lack design skills or training to communicate effectively. This means that there is scope to design something for such users that makes it easier for them to communicate more effectively. Take a look at what an archetypal user in our case might be like. This is Roshni. She is 30 years old and an environmentalist and climate activist. She wants to create meaningful visual posts on social media to reach out to more people and inform them about issues related to climate change. But she is not experienced in design and cannot afford to hire a designer to make posts for her. She can operate desktop and mobile devices, spends a lot of time on social media, has a technical know-how to use apps, but her problem is a lack of design skills and experience. So how can you make something for Roshni that helps her achieve her goal? For this, we'll first look into some existing research. According to researchers in UC Berkeley, domain-specific design principles for visual communication can be developed by 1. Examining existing research on cognition and perception of visual communication, and 2. Analysis of existing examples of visual communication in the given domain. In the paper, they apply this technique to the design of maps. On the left is a map of San Francisco, and on the right are two maps designed by the researchers, based on the design principles they identified through their method. These maps on the right, designed for tourists, according to researchers, are more effective in communicating the desired information. We will now apply a similar method to visual political communication. According to a theoretical model on the cognitive reception of visual political communication, the cognition of VPC happens in 5 stages, which are illustrated here using an example. The first stage is the pre-attentive stage, in which an artifact may be in a recipient's peripheral vision, but they are not yet consciously aware of it. The next 2 stages are allocation of attention and reflection, in which the recipients take in the information on the artifact and an emotional response to it is also generated. After this, if the artifact has been effective, its message is stored in the recipient's memory, and finally, it leaves a cognitive effect on the recipient, which colors their opinions and evaluation of information which they receive from other sources in the future. This model underlines the importance of attracting the attention of the recipient, without which none of the other stages would even materialize. It also shows the importance of forming a positive emotional response among recipients in order to be effective in delivering the message and having a sustained effect. Next, we will form a framework for analyzing visual political communication. For this, we need to identify the 3 basic units in the process of visual communication: the communicator, the message, the recipient. and also the relationship between them by identifying the social and political context that needs to be addressed. We will also look into the analysis of science in visual political communication. The study of science in communication can be divided into three parts: syntactics, semantics, and pragmatics. Syntactics refers to the structure and order of a language, that is, the relationship of signs to one another. Semantics refers to the relationship between signs and their meaning, and pragmatics is the relationship between signs and their human interpreters. The syntactic components of VPC that we will analyze are iconography, text, typography, color, and composition. Here, we will use the example of an election poster used in 1968 US Democratic presidential nomination race. First, we identify all the details related to the context. It was made for George McCarthy and his presidential campaign. It was made at a time when there were protests and demonstrations against US involvement in Vietnam War. The targeted users were Democratic Party voters. And the message of this poster was that McCarthy represents peace in the context of the Vietnam War. If we look at how the different syntactic elements have been used, we can see that the designer used iconography associated with peace, that is the image of a dove, used colors associated with American nationalism, used the words peace and McCarthy to draw direct relationship between them, and even the style of the illustration and typography have been selected to match the visual language of posters used in demonstrations for peace and against the war. The composition also shows the centrality of the theme of peace in the campaign. We see here how the designer has deliberately and consciously used syntactic elements in order to effectively communicate the desired message. If we take a look at some existing apps, most of them follow two methods. First, there are apps like Photoshop that take can use it directly to a blank canvas. These apps are powerful tools and are excellent resources for experienced designers, but are intimidating to an amateur user. Then there are also apps like Canva, which are targeted at amateur users, but mostly rely on templates to help them design graphics. What we can draw from the analysis we did previously is a different process for designing visual political communication. This process can be divided into the following steps. 1. Define the context that needs to be addressed. 2. Select syntactic elements based on their semantic and pragmatic connotations. 3. Apply them to the design. And finally, review based on effectiveness of cognitive reception. So, to meet the needs of the users, I'm developing an app called PowerPost that follows this process. PowerPost is being developed as a free and open source progressive web app and is written in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Being developed as a progressive web app means that the app can be operated both on a web browser and as independent apps on desktop and mobile operating systems. Currently, in its first iteration, the focus is on optimizing it for desktop devices. The source code for the app can be found on GitHub. The URL is shown on the bottom right of the screen. Now let's take a look at the app. The first screen that will be shown to the users will be to select the shape of the canvas. They can select a square, portrait, or landscape canvas whose size will also depend on whether they choose the medium as digital or print. From there, they will be taken to the next page, which will be a screen where they will be asked to define the context they will be designing for. Here they will be asked 4 questions that we had identified previously. Then they will be asked to select the syntactic elements that they will use in their design. This page will have a sidebar on the right, which will show the users suggestions on how to select their elements. They can also conduct an image search here to look for public domain images relevant to this topic. Then they will be taken to the Canvas page where they will be shown drawing tools similar to most other graphics apps. The difference here will be on the right, where there will be an information bar which will show them all the information that they had previously entered for the reference. And it will also have all the syntactic elements that they had previously selected, and they can drag and drop these elements directly on the canvas. The aim here is to enable users to make more effective visual political communication by making them more conscious and aware of the design decisions they need to make. You can try out the app for yourself by going to the link that is being shown on the screen. The app is still in an early development phase and some of the functionality may not work on your browser. With this, we have come to an end of this presentation. Thank you for your time.